All right, welcome to the what is it, episode 4, episode 5 now, I think, of the Quantum podcast. Oh, jeez. The Quantum Photons. Gee golly willikers. I'm amazing at introducing the program.
This is what
I'm a
happens when we're
professional,
off.
award-winning, amazing. Um, yeah. My name's Aaron. That's Stefan, and this is the Quantum Photons. We're amazing. So today's podcast, I didn't even think of a question to ask. We're gonna just play this one by the seat of our pants. What is your what's our get to know you question we should ask ourselves today, Stefan?
Oh boy, I don't know.
Ooh, I got one. What is your go-to GIF?
I guess
I got mine. I'll talk about mine while I'll talk about mine while you think. And there's actually several. Okay,
I was
so
about to say.
I'll give you time to think. I'll explain mine and then we'll go from there. So I love GIFs because it is an entirely different manner of communication. I would never say that we should go and communicate only through GIFs, although when I was in college, as early as 2018 and before, me and my college, the folks I was going through classes through to become a teacher, we would like reply back and forth with GIFs in certain situations, certain moments. But I have an appreciation for certain GIFs. Now, my first one is an oldie but a goodie from teacher Twitter. And there's a friend on Twitter. His name is Matt. He's a teacher in Massachusetts, I think, somewhere. And he, more often than not, is... He seems to kind of step into things, and then people start kind of coming after him and talking to him and challenging him. And so my go-to reply to him GIF-wise when he says something rather, the word's not controversial, but rather spicy, if you will, is the GIF with the panda that runs like he's getting shot at and kicks a table up to protect himself. The reality of it is he wasn't getting shot at, but they add in like the gunfire, effects, and it looks like the panda's, getting shot at, and he kicks the table over to, get behind to protect him and stuff like that. So that's one of my favorite GIFs because sometimes it's just like, yeah, you need to take cover when you're under fire and you're a big old panda who's trying to escape it. My other favorite GIF, and this is primarily used against folks who are across the pond in the United Kingdom, Europe, and anywhere else but the good old USA. And it's from a commercial for Dodge Challengers from like 10 years ago. And it's fantastic because it has George Washington and like the colony and the army in Dodge Chargers with American flags sticking out the windows, running almost like trying to run down the British army. And the commercial itself is fantastic. So if you're out there like listening and watching this, you need to hit the pause button, open up another tab, and search George Washington commercial Dodge. And there's an extended version. It's pure, sublime, beautiful marketing because it is that spirit of America, and it is that spirit of what we once called Detroit, the heart of the sports car or of the engine of the whatever you want to, the vehicle revolution, which is a lot of those muscle cars were coming out of that part of the country. And it's just fun because I will use it when someone's like, "Oh, in the United Kingdom we do this," and I just send that as a reply because I'm just like, "America, we got Chargers." Now it's mostly meant in fun, and I am an ungrateful colonial, and I freely admit that I'm an ungrateful colonial, and I accept my status as an ungrateful colonial. However, it doesn't mean that I don't get to use that GIF on certain occasions when I'm like George Washington in a Charger, taking out the Brits in their red coats, which are now brown because they have mud all over them because we splattered it on them with our Chargers. Those are my two favorite. The other one is, and I don't know what show it's from or what it's from, but I searched for "I'm Here to Help," and it's this blonde-haired young woman, and she's just like, "I'm here to help." Like she's just genuinely like, "I'm just here to help." So I will reply when someone says, "Hey, thanks for the help." I'm like, I'm just here to help, and I love that. I love that GIF because it's just so much fun. So those are my top 3. I'm sure I have others. When I'm celebrating Friday, there's a GIF where the Blues Brothers are dancing and it says, TGIF or whatever. Thank God it's Friday or whatever. So there's all kinds of assorted GIFs that have been repurposed over time. But those are my 3 favorites. So now that I've given Stefan time to think, what are your favorite GIF or GIFs to use?
I'm literally scrolling through my Discord because I have so many favorite GIFs. It's not even funny. But one of my favorites, and I use it when I'm like trying to just be like, I don't care about any of this. I didn't hear any of this. And that's it's a GIF from an old TV show, Hogan's Heroes. Sergeant Schultz.
Oh, is it the I know nothing?
I see nothing, I hear nothing, I know nothing.
Yeah. So I love that character because he does. He says, "I see nothing, I know nothing," and it's just it's totally nothing, I know nothing, and it's fantastic. I appreciate a good Hogan's Heroes reference because it's a good show. It was a fun. It totally made fun of the World War II situation and made the Nazis seem like they were buffoons.
Exactly. It's absolutely a great show. But that I hit that on many occasions when I just don't care what people were saying. I'll just be like, that is what I feel.
I know nothing. I know nothing.
Another one that I use quite often. I'm scrolling up here. So I gotta find it. Like I said, I have so many. If people were being really petty, which, there's people that do that. There is a GIF of a kangaroo with a ball, and it just throws the ball down, and it says, "Fine, be that way." So that's another go-to one. And then my last one, which I use quite often, is from the movie Nacho Libre. It shows him.
Libre.
It shows him in his monk outfit, and he says, "It's the best. I love it." So I send that to people in cases of things like that. So those are three, but I have tons.
Yeah, I haven't watched that movie in a long time. My remembering of that movie is when he's like stretching in front of her, and he's like, "How do you like my recreational clothes?" or something like that. And he's just stretching.
How do you like my new
no, these are my I need to watch that movie.
They look expensive.
How? It's been a while. It's been a while. I'll have to check the movie back out again because I think it's Jack Black, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Nacho Libre.
I have one more gift that's really great. It's
Okay.
from Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and it shows the character on a very high cliff going up behind someone and Spartan kicking them off the cliff. So, like, when I'm just done with people, I just send that one.
Yeah. I've had enough of you. Get off my cliff.
Right, pretty much.
All right. Well, and so if you're out in the audience and you're listening either on the video portion on the YouTube or on the audio portion on the podcast, feel free to send us your gifts that you choose to use in moments of need. The email address is adelayedteacher@gmail.com. If you're in the YouTube section, just make a comment down below, and you can tell us all about the gifts that you use when you're annoyed, happy, concerned, cranky, and other emotional experiences that you have as you go through. When we come back, we're going to launch, and we're doing a grab bag today, a little bit of some stories, and then our friend Stefan was able to see Dune 2 today. So fair warning, when we get to that portion of the podcast, I will warn you. There are spoilers going to happen. I have not seen it, but I'm okay with spoilers, and I want to hear the details, the nitty-gritty, all the good stuff. So prepare yourself for that in the latter half of this episode, as we'll dig into it and go from there. But we'll be right back here on the Quantum Photons with some articles and some discussions on the science that's been circling around the globe for the last week and a half or more. My name's Aaron. That's Stefan. We'll be right back after this. We'll start with the very strange 240 million or Chinese, whatever it is. All right, here we go. In 5, in 4, in 3, in 2, in 1. All right, welcome back to the Quantum Photons. My name is Aaron.
And my name is Stefan.
And that's Stefan on the other side. So there's always, science is fascinating to me, and what I like about science is that there's so there's so much going on, and it's really, 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 really fun. And I don't claim to be a scientist. Let's be very clear in that situation. I'm the science fiction end of this whole conversation. I mean, Stefan also is our science fiction guy, but he's also more of the science when it comes to that kind of thing. But he's also not all science when it comes to what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you. They announced a discovery. There it is. That's what I want to look at. Okay. We're not going to share the audio for the tab. So scientists, this was on February 23rd, 2024, so about a week ago, John Hosworth for ABC News was talking about how they announced a discovery of a very strange 240 million year old Chinese dragon fossil. The animal is 5-meter long aquatic reptile from the Triassic period of China. So it's a story out of London. Scientists in Scotland have revealed a remarkable discovery of a very strange 240 million year old Chinese dragon fossil. The international team from the National Museum of Scotland revealed their discovery found in the Jiangsu province in southern China of the, Dinophallosaurus orientalis, a 5-meter long aquatic reptile from the Triassic period dating back an estimated 240 million years. Now here's where it gets really interesting. With 32 separate neck vertebrae, Dinophallosaurus orientalis had an extraordinarily long neck that drew comparisons with that of the Tanystropheus hydroides, another strange marine reptile from the middle Triassic of both Europe and China. They said both reptiles were of similar size and have several features of the skull in common, including a fish trap style of dentation. However, Dinophallosaurus is unique in possessing many more vertebrae both in the neck and in the torso, giving the animal a much more snake-like appearance. So they have this drawing of the creature swimming alongside some prehistoric fish known as Sarataishis. That's going to be horribly pronounced. I apologize to the scientific community for that one. But what they're talking about here is they're saying the reptile was clearly well adapted to oceanic lifestyle, as indicated by the flippered limbs and extremely preserved fishes in its stomach. So the guy had been eaten. He's a hungry hippo. Despite superficial similarities, was not closely related to famous long-neck plesiosauruses that only evolved around 40 million years later, and which inspired the myth of the Loch Ness Monster. Some would argue that the Loch Ness Monster is actually real, but that's neither here nor there. That's a later episode. We'll dig into that at some point. The reptile was originally identified in 2003, but this most recent discovery of additional, more complete specimens has allowed scientists to depict the bizarre long-necked creature in full for the first time. It is yet one more example of the weird and wonderful world of the Triassic that continues to baffle paleontologists. Dr. Nick Fraser, who's the keeper of natural sciences of the Natural Museums of Scotland, we are certain that it will capture imaginations across the globe due to its striking appearance reminiscent of the long and snake-like mythical Chinese dragon. So there we have the actual the bones and all that of it. And it's interesting that we talk a lot about how stuff that we've seen or have come from mythology often actually come from a scientific basis. So the researchers have studied the fossil for the course of 10 years, which boggles my mind that you would have to do this for 10 years. But they finally made their announcement public on Friday. It's been an international effort. People have been working together, which we love to see. The paper describing the animal has been published in full in the academic journal. I would actually be interested in reading that at some point. As an earlier career, researcher has been incredible experience to contribute to these significant findings, said Dr. Stephen Spikeman, a postdoctoral researcher based at Stuttgart State Museum of Natural History. We hope that our future research will help us understand more about the evolution of the group of animals. So this is, I'm spotlighting the story because it's absolutely wild that we're still discovering things. And I know if you're out there and you're like, well, yeah, that's the whole thing. We're always going to be discovering new fossils, new whatevers. But it's absolutely wild that we're still digging stuff up. We're still finding things. And these things are changing a lot of what we kind of know about our what we've been digging up. And so this is kind of cool because it explains when you read like old stories, you read even when we cross into biblical, stories and things, you hear things about like these beasts and these large creatures and things that obviously we don't, have around anymore, or we've lost or whatever, that you do have proof of what may have been a piece of that story or an origin for that. So the Chinese dragon, the mythical Chinese dragon, probably has more like in common than we really, really think we know. The other thing is that there could be an actual dragon-looking thing buried somewhere in the ground that we just haven't gotten to yet. And while it's not going to be, a dragon, an actual fire-breathing dragon, it's just it blows my mind. I guess to kind of coalesce this conversation, Stefan, were you a dinosaur kid?
Somewhat. I mean,
somewhat.
It would depend at times. Of course, I didn't like.
Did you have a favorite dinosaur? I guess is the question.
It would be very generic to say it, but it was the T-Rex.
Of course it was. So here's the thing. I think there's a school of thought in this, and this is my own personal opinion. It's not based on any scientific fact. So we're throwing science out the window for a second. We'll come back to it. We'll bring it back in, but it's currently locked out. I think there's a difference with kids, and I don't think there's a difference between boys and girls in this one. But if you were either a T-Rex fan, or you were a Triceratops fan, or you were a Stegosaurus fan, I think those three. Or like a brontosaurus. There was like 4 main dinosaurs where you were like, okay, that's my dino. That's my man. That's my girl. That's my whatever. Like you would do that. So the fact that you were a T-Rex kid, I think explains some things about you, because it's like, I guess I'll ask this question. Do you remember why you chose the T-Rex, or why that was such an important animal or dinosaur in your life?
Nope. Honestly, nope.
Well, way to go. That's really deep, Stefan. Thank you.
Well, here, let me say this. Once I got older, and once I watched Jurassic Park, I wasn't watching that at 5 years old because that'd be real good. My favorite dinosaur then became the Velociraptor, just because of its absolute cunning. Like it's just it's a cunning animal. I always laughed at the Dilophosaurus when it spits on the dude, and he deserves that so much.
Good old Dennis Nedry. Well, I think so. What's interesting is when Jurassic Park originally came out, there was a lot of stuff they got right. But then as more discoveries were made, in later iterations of Jurassic Park, they began to say that, the Velociraptors had more feathers or were more feathered. And so the models began to reflect that. Again, that more advanced, that more researched, that more discovered basis. And so the dinosaurs began to kind of look more like what they were saying they could have been. And there's a lot of proof to suggest that dinosaurs were probably, some of our dinosaurs, our more contemporary dinosaurs that we know and love, were probably very bird-like and had feathers and had more of less of the skin and more of the... So it's very interesting to kind of see how we adjust. If you go from Jurassic Park 1... and you go all the way to the last one that they did, you're probably going to look at those designs and go, wow, we have changed dinosaurs a lot. I will say that ever since the original Jurassic Park, I've had a healthy fear of a Velociraptor in a kitchen, because it's just that scene is absolutely terrifying, because it's done so well.
Yeah. So they said they're going to be releasing a survival Jurassic Park game, and one of the scenes in that game is a person in a kitchen, with Velociraptors coming into the room.
Of course. Well, it's such a classic movie. It's such a classic, like up until that point. And I think I remember seeing Jurassic Park when it came out in theaters. I was young enough that. There is there's before Jurassic Park and there's after Jurassic Park. The amount of technology, and both with models and computer generated effects that went into that movie is mind blowing. That today in 2024, that movie still holds up.
Oh yeah, it still
is relevant.
Like you see some movies from that time and they look horrible, but that one. The stuff actually looked good.
Yeah, it was insane. And what I love about the Star Wars. Wow. What I love about the Jurassic Park series, there's some ups and downs, obviously, and we at some point we'll probably go into that. But the constant, at least, has been T-Rex. T-Rex has been a constant character in that movie series. but I will never. That moment at the end of the movie when, the T-Rex takes out all the Velociraptors and is standing in the middle of the lobby, and the dinosaurs ruled the earth. Little thing is flapping down, and he chills to this day, just sitting there going, "This is the movie. This is it. This is the best of the best." It's incredible, and the way that it portrays dinosaurs and how we thought they moved and how they worked, it was incredible to see that. So I love Jurassic Park. I have a special place in my heart for Jurassic Park: The Lost World, the second one. And then there's Lost World, and then there's the other one where they meet the big Scaliosaurus and they bring back Alan Grant, and then they did. It's been an interesting journey with Jurassic Park. So that's all I can really say before we start rabbit trailing off into rating and discussing the Jurassic Park movies. So I have a deeper history with dinosaurs, and I think so. I live in Colorado, and that may be part of it. We have a lot of dinosaur-related places that you can go visit and you can go hang out with, and we have like actual dino tracks that you can go look at and see that actually were made and preserved in the plaster and the mud or whatever. And so as a kid in Colorado, we were dinosaur centric. Like, it was a dinosaur world for us as kids. And my favorite dinosaur has always been the Triceratops, because there's a book, and I obviously don't have it anymore, but there's a book with an image of a Triceratops using his horns to like gore a T-Rex. And like, I'm always about the underdog, right? I love the story of the underdog. And so when I saw that T-Rex getting just beaten up by a Triceratops, I was like, yeah, you get him. Yeah. Because I was the underdog. I was the kid who was picked on. I was the kid who was bullied in elementary school, middle school. Not so much high school, but middle school was a rough point. But it's like you have that idea of like, yeah, that Triceratops, man, he's cool. He can take him on, rah, rah, rah. So I love the Triceratops. Just also because in Jurassic Park, that epic scene where the Triceratops is laying on his side and Alan Grant, and that was a puppet. That was all practical effects. And he was laying on his side, and as he was breathing, he was laying on it. I was like, oh, that's so cool, Triceratops. I was obviously older by that point, but it was still just amazing. My other one is the Stegosaurus, because I love the idea of using your tail as a weapon, and you've got all these these plates in your back, and you're just boom, 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 boom. So I don't know. It was when you're a kid, that's just fun. Dinosaurs for me were my jam. I was not into comic books or anything like that. I was a Star Trek kid later, but I was a dinosaur kid for a long time. We didn't have Marvel. Hilariously enough, we didn't have a lot of superheroes. We had like Batman and Superman in comics, but we didn't have the movies like you have now with every hero on the screen. Incidentally, Superman, the new movie coming from DC, is no longer called Superman Legacy or whatever it was called. It's just being called Superman. So that's going to be interesting. They started shooting today. We'll see how that shakes out. I know we're all a little sad that Henry Cavill didn't get to play the role that he was supposed to play because of all the things, but that's a whole other story for another day. Okay, so from dinosaurs let's talk about scientific discoveries, because this is something I'm trying to get better at, because I'm going to be very honest. I have not been a good scientific person. So we're going to look through these scientific records. So this is just fun to read through. Least sleep among mammals. If you don't have a sleep schedule out there in America, get one, please. I'll tell you right now, you need your sleep. Your body keeps track. A normal elephant seal, during the months-long hunting trips at sea, they nap less than 20 minutes at a time and average just 2 hours of total sleep per day. I don't know about you, Stefan, but I couldn't make it on 2 hours of sleep. I would... No.
I've done it once or twice.
Oh.
But that was with so much caffeine to like pump my body so that I was still alive. And I had such a horrible headache. Like, I'll tell you the story. I'll tell you the story.
Okay.
So I was out at an event, and I had to go to work the next day. And work was at, 4 a.m. is when I started working this time. 4 a.m. to 1 p.m. was my shift. And I got home at like 2. Not even joking. Home at 2.
Yeah.
And I was like, all
Oof.
right, well, I could stay up or I could lay down for a few hours.
Yeah.
Well, that few hours turned into me waking up in a panic at 6:30 in the morning,
Oh,
knowing that I was
geez.
late for work. So
Oh,
I got
no.
ready and sprinted into work, and I don't drink a whole lot of them. I found some that aren't quite as bad, but I got an energy drink, and I go back to my team, and
Oh,
they're
jeez.
looking at me, and I was like, "Do not say a word. Let's just move past this. I'm here now.
Right.
Let's go to work."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I had a headache all day from that. Your body is
Oh,
not
jeez.
meant to do that. There is a reason your body is supposed to have
No.
8 hours of sleep. And
Yep.
we as humans need that to function. At least 8 hours of sleep. Do I always
Yeah.
get 8 hours of sleep? No. But as long as I get usually 6 to 8, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm told as you get older that's harder to do. I don't know, obviously.
What are you trying to say there, Stefan?
I'm saying I'm not you. I don't know how that works.
Are you saying I'm old, sir? Sir?
You are older than I am.
Fine. Yeah, it's so as you get older, like I'm only 41 years old, so I'm not old. But yeah, you can't do the things you used to do. Like there's it's a scientific. I don't want to throw science into this, but it's a scientific fact. Like staying up past 11 o'clock is a dangerous proposition for me. Number one, I'm too tired, and number two, I have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and roll out and start getting ready. If I go to bed like 11:30, my day is thrown. I am a hot mess from start to finish. And to your point, yeah, I'm slamming down tea. I'm drinking coffee. I'm doing everything I can. The only caffeinated related story I will tell you. So I worked at Starbucks for 5 years back in the day when I was going to school, and there's different roasts, right? So you have the dark roast, the medium roast, the blonde roast. Then you have like the overnight, the coffee that sits overnight or whatever. You have that stuff. You have all kinds of coffee that you can get. Cold brew is what I was talking about. The cold brew is that sits overnight, and then it, whatever. So I've made two mistakes in my lifetime. My first mistake was I usually would have Pike Place. Pike Place is a medium blend, which means it's roasted for a medium amount of time, and so it's the caffeine content is generally an average of a certain amount, and it's generally an okay amount. Darker roasts will have less caffeine but more flavor because they spent more time in the roasting. The flavor's been retained, but the caffeine has been bled out. So I traditionally would always go either a dark roast or like a Pike Place, a medium roast, because I was like, that's a safe amount of caffeine. Well, one day I think I was dragging because I was tired. I'd stayed up. I was working on homework late one night or whatever, and I was at work at the Starbucks. And I was like, well, you know what? Let's go for a blonde roast. Let's go for a venti blonde roast. Let's do it. Worst idea of my life. It felt like everything was going like at a light. It felt bad. It didn't feel great. I felt like I was tense. I felt like I could hear things, like my hearing was all affected. So I never did blonde roast again. The other mistake I made, and this was a fun one that thankfully I didn't repeat or I didn't do too much of. But so cold brew, at least when I was working there, it may have changed the procedures. But at the cold brew was done is that you would put a massive, big bag of beans that had been like whatever, that had been chewed up or whatever, and you put it in this big plastic container, and you poured like 7 pitchers or 8 pitchers of water or whatever over it, so it would soak overnight and gather all of the chemical, all the flavor, all the caffeine. So then the next morning the crew would come in and they would then start the process of putting out the cold brew. Here was the thing that I forgot one day for myself because I wasn't preparing. I wasn't on bar. You're supposed to cut it. And what that means is you're supposed to cut it with water. So I took a straight shot of like a venti or a grande cold brew. Oh, dear sweet baby Moses. It was an intense afternoon. I was like, why am I feeling like this? Why am I feeling? It was worse than the blonde roast. I was like, what is going on? They're like, well, what did you drink? I was like, oh, cold brew. And they're like, well, how'd you make it? I was like, I just poured it in the cup and put some ice and then I put some cream in there. And they're like, you didn't cut it with water? And I was like, cut it with what? And they explained that you have to fill like a certain amount with cold brew, and then you fill the rest with cold water, and then ice and whatever. And so the flavor was still retained. It wasn't that you weren't getting enough product. It's just that it was brewed at such a high, like non-diluted ratio that you had to dilute it, or that caffeine was going to hurt somebody. And so I learned that day, a very painful and wake-filled afternoon and possibly evening, that don't throw in the cold brew without cutting it, because it's going to make you very, very awake for a very, very long time. And so that was my experience with caffeine. I didn't want to repeat it because it was terrifying, and I was like, I'm just going to stay with my Pike's Place, and I'm not going to do that anymore. So there you go. That's my story with having made a mistake. I drank a lot of coffee when I worked with Starbucks. I drank a lot of chai, a lot of coffee, and after 5 years, I was like, I'm done with having any Starbucks stuff. So if you enjoy Starbucks stuff out there in the world, that's fine. You do you enjoy it. It is not my particular taste of the week, if you will. So one last note, and it probably, I researched it, you can still buy it, but like, I don't know, 10 years ago or something like that, there was a commercial that ran where you could sprinkle caffeine on your food, and people lost their minds. They're like, what are you doing? It still exists. You can buy caffeine powder. I think you have to go through a process, but it freaked people out because you could like, hey, you've got a steak dinner. Want to stay awake for a while after you have your steak dinner? Sprinkle some caffeine on it. And I was just like, what? Who? What? This can't be FDA approved. There was a whole particular thing, I guess, about it. I'm not sure if you can do it now. I'm not Googling it because I'll end up on some list somewhere of a Caffeine Addicts Anonymous, watch list. So, but it does exist, I believe. You can get caffeine powder, but at the time it freaked people out. They're like, kids are going to be buying caffeine powder and, going crazy. I'm like, okay, all right, calm down, folks. Calm yourselves. It's going to be fine. Life's going to go on. So there we go. There's the least sleep story. If you don't get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, we would urge you, we wouldn't tell you how to live your life because that's not our job, but we would urge you, get some more sleep more regularly because it's gonna save your life.
We're using science.
I have not. Yeah, we're just using science. I haven't read most of these. I looked at it briefly last week. I was like, oh, these look fun. So earliest equestrians in 3000 BC is when the Yamnaya people may have been the earliest horseback riders. Yamanya skeletons unearthed in Romania, Bulgaria, and Hungary show telltale signs of horsemanship, including marks on the femur and pelvis that could come from sitting astride, and vertebral damage from falling off. So that's kind of cool that we've been a horse riding human people for quite some time. I love horses. They terrify the heck out of me because they're basically 16-year-old boys with 1,000 pounds or whatever. That's what I've heard them referred to as, like, horses are basically teenage boys and they're annoying. That was told to me by a horse, like somebody who was working with the horses that we were going to ride. And I was like, well, you're not wrong. The sunniest places on Earth, would you believe it, is in Chile's Atacama Desert. An average of 308 watts of sunshine per square meter. Holy wow. The most intense sunlight anywhere on Earth. Sometimes solar radiation exceeds 2,000 watts per square meter, rivaling the amount of sunshine expected to beat down on Venus, which is much closer to the sun. So if you want to experience Venus, go to Chile's Atacama Desert.
I pulled up an article in regards to this. Adds a little more to it. It says it's actually the radiation that you'll be receiving in summer if you're standing up on Venus. Bear in mind, Venus is the hottest planet in the solar system. Although Mercury is closer to the sun, its ultra-thick atmosphere traps in the heat. Its average surface temperature is 880 degrees Fahrenheit.
Jeez.
Which is obviously hot enough to melt lead.
Right.
While it's clearly not that warm in the Atacama Desert, the intensity of sunlight it receives is comparable.
Wow.
I don't want to go there.
There was a story a couple years back where they had built a hotel or a motel or hotel in Las Vegas, and it was like pure glass, right? And because of how they had designed it, there was a point in which the sun would hit at a certain part of the day, and there was like a small little area in the pool area or whatever where it would be focused, and it actually burned somebody. Like actually, like I don't want to say third-degree burns, but like significant damage to this person's skin and body and health. And they were like, oh, we didn't know it would do that. And it was this whole thing of like, we need to fix that, or at least fence off this area where the windows and the glass and the reflection is creating
that's
creating a situation where someone could hurt.
That's like when they created the Disney concert hall. The design of it, the reflection from some of the walls, it was made of stainless steel. Well, when sun reflects off of that, it's going to be hot.
Hot, yeah.
According to neighbors, like people with surrounding houses, they usually had an increase of temperature of around 8 degrees on top of what the temperature already was. So it was extremely hot. It was because of the reflection from that building, which I think, if I recall, in one of my actual college classes, someone did an article on it. They had to redo the panels for it because of the intense heat.
Right.
Like,
it was
even
causing such an issue.
standing near the building was not good for people. So they had to replace everything to make it a safer environment.
Science is funny. Like it's we think we figured it out. We're like, we know everything. No, we don't. You or at least you don't have a scientist on board with your architects to say, hey, it's a bad idea to have all this glass pointing in one particular area where you might actually light somebody on fire. Nobody did get lighted on fire.
If we really want to talk about science, so this week in my astronomy class, I learned about the sun.
Oh, okay.
I actually have learned about the sun more in the past 16 weeks than I probably ever have in my life, because in my space studies class, I also had to learn about the sun.
Okay.
What I learned the most about it was solar storms. Wonderful things that, honestly, people don't even realize.
Yeah.
That a lot of the issues that we have in regards to the Earth comes from the sun. It comes from those storms. So I had to do a huge article on, like, solar storms this week.
Okay.
And do you know the biggest cause of space weather? They call it space weather. Do you know the biggest cause?
I do not. I have a feeling you're going to tell me, though.
Well, I mean, if you don't want me to, I don't have to. But
no, I'd be delighted to know.
Radiation.
Okay.
Solar radiation, which the fusion within the sun when it builds up is intense. It is. I mean, the sun is the hottest thing in the galaxy. It has two different ways that it does that. It does it by solar flares, and then it does it by what it calls or what we call coronal mass injections, which is pretty much an explosion that comes off of the sun. These storms, funnily enough, even though we're in space and you know how far the sun is from Earth, or we'd melt.
Yep.
It can take anywhere from 30 minutes to 3 to 4 hours for one of those storms to hit. But that radiation, it affects more than people realize. It can affect if you're in a high altitude airplane, and that radiation comes, you can be affected by it. The astronauts on the space station can be affected by it. Our satellites are affected by it. So there can be outages that people don't even realize why there's an outage. Sometimes it's not from some freak storm that's occurring here on Earth. It's from that radiation that's just bombarding us.
Okay.
The Aurora Borealis, that is solar radiation. That is what it is. So it's really cool. It's cool to see. It's cool to understand better about the sun. It's a very hot place. Don't ever want to go there.
Nope, not on my list of places to be. But it is interesting, kind of, we talk about the solar flares and all that stuff that are, we are at the mercy of the sun. Sometimes with what we deal with. And spring is approaching. Spring is but months away here, and then it'll be summer, and there's predictions of how hot it's going to be, and we're we're in for some interesting weather ahead. I think just locally here, but also just across the world. We're gonna see how things shake out, and if some predictions come true, and where the science lands and where the prediction lands, and how we understand how that all works together. So all of that will be for us to be talking about as we get into summer. The oldest black hole, apparently, which I didn't know there was such a thing, a supermassive black hole some 13.2 billion light years from Earth, is the most distant, most ancient supermassive black hole ever observed. The monster dates to when the universe was just 470 million years old, making it about 200 million years older than the record breaker announced in 2021, and 100 million years older than the black hole that claimed the title in July. From the article, it looks like it was from 12/18/21 and 1/22 from an article. Because the newfound black hole boasts about the same heft as its surrounding galaxy, researchers think the black hole could have formed only through the collapse of a massive gas cloud. The finding could help shed light on how the universe's first generation of juggernaut black holes were born. So there you go. That's an actual topic for a show down the road, will be black holes and how they're portrayed and what the truth is. So look forward to that, because I think would be a fun topic to talk about.
It's also a very interesting topic because we don't know a lot about them. Honestly,
yeah.
We have no idea a lot of information in regards to black holes.
Yeah. Lots of conjecture.
We don't want to go near one. We know that.
Yeah. It would be bad for everybody involved. Snappiest claws, that's fantastic for me. The famously fast adult snapping shrimp have nothing on their young. High-speed video reveals that the youngsters can snap their claws up to 600 kilometers per second, an acceleration of 20 times as fast as their elders achieve. A 1-month-old shrimp claw's acceleration is on the same order of magnitude as a 9mm bullet blasting out of a gun, and is the highest acceleration for a reusable body part underwater. So that's mind-boggling to me, that they're that fast and they're that powerful. I don't want to find myself in a dark alley with a young snapping claw lobster.
I'd be
questioning
shrimp. A lot of things if there was a lobster in an alley and it was attacking you, considering they need water.
You don't know. It's possible. Stranger things have happened.
And it wasn't a lobster.
It probably would be on an
shrimp,
episode of Stranger Things.
Just to clarify.
Shrimp, yeah. Shrimp.
So
shrimp, lobster, same difference, right?
If that was the case, honestly, Aaron, if that was the case and you messaged me and said, hey, I just had the weirdest encounter, I would think you were on some kind of hallucinogen. I'm not even joking, because, that's not scientifically possible.
You never know. It's not scientifically possible until it is. Yes, I know that's a bit weird and wonky, but whatever. I'm going with it. The oldest wooden structure, despite what happened to the second little pig's house, wood has long proved a sturdy, reliable construction material for perhaps as long as 500,000 years. Carved interlocking logs covered in Zambia date to nearly 480,000 years ago, making the oldest known wood structures. The structure, possibly a remnant of a walkway, seating area, or storage unit, hints that some human relatives may have had a less nomadic lifestyle than we previously thought, which I always appreciate when these scientific discoveries happen, because it's like, what we thought we knew has changed a little bit, and it's always curious to see how that goes. Oh my, that's a big boy. The animal kingdom appears to have a new heavyweight champion. An extinct whale aptly named Parasitus colossus might have weighed up to 340 metric tons. Oh, gee golly willikers. Twice as much as the heaviest blue whale. An analysis of fossils found in Peru, of course it's in Peru, the mighty mammal is thought to have prowled shallow waters 39 million years ago, but what it could have eaten to maintain its size remains a mystery. Look at that thing. He's big. That's a big boy.
Very big.
340 metric tons. Whew. That's crazy talk. So there's your top science facts from, I think it was 2023 discoveries. I'm going to stop the pro there. So there's that. And I think I'm not going to talk about the insect killing worm. I think we can talk about Dune 2 now for the remainder of the program. So Stefan went and saw Dune 2, and he got to. I haven't had a chance to see Dune 2. I've seen Dune 1, and I loved Dune 1. It was very perfectly atmospheric, perfectly kind of story was told really well. I have seen the original Dune, and it is an interesting one. There's plenty of things in there that I'm just like, nope, not so much of that. Patrick Stewart is in Dune, the original Dune, so that's always an interesting dynamic to know that was where he started. Well, not where he started, but where his sci-fi credos kind of credits came from. I did not like the original Dune movie. It had its moments, and there's some design things that are really cool in there, but there's some other things I'm just like, nope. So when the new Dune came out, I was like, yeah, wow, Timothée Chalamet, good stuff. Zendaya, yeah, let's do it. And it is ridiculously good. Dune 1, Part 1 is a really solid movie. If you haven't seen it yet, take our word for it, see Dune 1. However, this is now your official spoiler alert. Everything from here forward will be a spoiler for Dune 2. Hear me again. Everything forward to this moment will be a spoiler for Dune 2. You have been warned. You have been told. You have been educated. If you continue past this point and you haven't seen Dune 2 and you want to be surprised, it's your own fault. Okay, let's talk about Dune 2. So, Stefan, walk us through, because you came back and you were messaging me going, it's the most amazing movie I've ever top one of the year, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, all right. I gotta hear why. So, the floor is yours for why and how and who.
Why and how and who. Well, first off, the premise, I've never watched the old Dune. I heard it's a very rough movie to watch, so I probably won't ever watch it, to be honest with you.
It's not worth it's okay. I mean, there's certain elements that are just extraordinary in how they designed and crafted, but it's not, there's parts of it I'm just like, nope. So watching it with your fast forward, that would be my advice, because it's an interesting time capsule on both a time period in filmmaking and how we looked at things. And so just go in with both eyes wide open and a remote in one hand to go. Just
just won't ever watch it. Let's be honest.
Okay, that's fair. All right, so you went and saw the new Dune 2
after just watching Dune Part 1 last night for the first time.
Okay.
So
you went right back to back.
Right. So it was very fresh. I didn't have any issues of being like, oh, what's this mean, or anything like that. So to premise, first off, I googled it because I was curious. Since its release, as of yesterday, it has already grossed $12 million.
Yeah, it's blowing up. It is rocking and rolling through any kind of, like, all the records and all the theaters.
Yeah. So, there's a lot to the movie. So, let me ask you, what's something you want to know? I know you want to know all of it, but like, give me something specific.
Is there a payoff in the end? Do our bad guys get their comeuppance? Do our good guys win? Do we get to have resolution that is worthwhile?
Okay, so yes, lots of people die in part 2.
Yeah.
The Fremen raise a gigantic army and they go against the Emperor. And the Harkonnen, that's how you say that.
Yep.
And the Emperor's army, I forget what they're called. It starts with an S. Something, whatever.
I know what you're talking about.
So in the end, the Baron, the Harkonnen Baron dies. Both of his heirs die.
Okay.
Let's see, who else? I'm trying to think. Those are the main notable characters that die.
Okay.
The Emperor doesn't die. Kind of wish he did, but I mean, there's a whole story behind that, so I'm sure there's reasoning.
Yeah.
I haven't read the books.
There's a whole series of books. It's like a 10-book series.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to think if anyone else important dies. One of the figures from the first movie, we find out he's not dead. One of the people that taught Paul how to fight. He didn't actually die.
Yep.
Gurney?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he's still alive. The arc between Paul and Zendaya, very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Don't like what happens in the end. It made me mad. I'm not going to lie.
Okay.
So he looks at her and he tells her, I'll always love you. But then he goes to the emperor and is like, I'll marry your daughter to make sure that the throne...
Oh, and that's a plot line in the book, too. I
Yeah.
remember that piece.
So I don't know what's going to happen there. She kind of walked away. She went away at the very end of the movie, and she's in tears. She's about to grapple onto a sandworm and ride it, which is an epic scene because Paul actually does it in the movie. And it's so cool to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Those sandworms are just kind of cool. There's a lot of violence, obviously. I mean, it's what it is. But the movie just, it flows very good. Its atmosphere is good. The people that do the soundtracks for those movies, Hans Zimmer he's so good at music. He's good at it. But I honestly, after watching it, I do think it will be a contender for one of the top movies of the year. And I mean, it's only March.
Right. It's day one of the release. I can actually,
let me
look up
to was day one.
Oh, maybe day two. So Dune 2 earnings so far. So 12 million in previews, more than twice. Yeah, 11 hours ago it was reviewed. So, and it's Friday night now. So I guarantee you the theaters are going to be packed. And then there will be more over the weekend into Saturday and Sunday. And so it's going to be, this movie's going to really, really, and here's the thing. So what is the last movie you saw in theaters? Obviously Dune 2, but before that.
It wasn't a movie. It was actually it was a TV series. It was a biblical TV series. We went and saw the first 3 episodes of it. Before that,
got it.
Oh goodness, what movie did I see in theaters last? I'm not sure, but it could potentially have been because I really can't remember. Top Gun. I know I went and saw Top Gun Maverick, and after that I can't remember, so there might have been something in between there somewhere, but I don't remember.
I think the last one for me was Ghostbusters Afterlife. That was
a really
the last
good
one
movie,
that I saw.
I'm not going to lie. I really
It
enjoyed
is.
that
It's
movie.
a solid film. My point in this, and this kind of dovetails with conversations we've had on Nerds by Screenlight as well, is part of the news that's been coming out the last couple of weeks is game studios are laying off, Paramount is laying off, a bunch of studios are consolidating or closing down and doing these things. And it's the true reason is that they've put so much content out. There's a glut of stuff out there to try and consume from every single streaming platform, where it used to be just Netflix and 1 or 2 other players. Everyone's got their streaming platform. Everyone's got their stuff. And it's so hard to keep up with it. So what I feel like is we've had video games like Baldur's Gate 3. We've had good, great, solid launches of some really incredible games. Others have failed miserably, and it's for a good reason. But the movie situation is a similar kind of dynamic. Madam Web did not do well. It bombed. And every single review that I watched on YouTube from one end to the other it was not written well. It was rushed. It was not the trailer we got sold was not the movie that we watched. And so a lot of criticism has been in the last year, but very much in the last 6 months, and definitely in the last 3 months, has been pointed towards these movie companies like the Hollywood and these producers and these streaming services. And it's like, look, we want good content. We want really well-made films, really well-made television shows. And when you're giving us dreck that is written terribly and not given time to develop the narrative and the dialogue and all that through like hard work by writers, we're just throwing the first or second draft up against the wall and saying, hey, does it work? And so I think I think there's something to be said because the Dune story was written by Frank Herbert. Like, it's an incredible story. It's a legit, rich well of storytelling to pull from. They didn't have to do too much work to get it out because it's already there. It's the same thing with Lord of the Rings. The reason why Lord of the Rings, the original trilogy, was so successful and it remains influential to this day is because it came from a rich and deep and complex novel or story, whatever you call it. And so the thing about why probably Dune 2 is exceptional because it has a great director. The director is solid. The actors and actresses are incredible but they're given good stuff, right? So all the cylinders are firing. Every piece of that puzzle is working out. And so you have an incredible director, you have an incredible cast, you have incredible writers who are pulling really great stuff out of an already existing IP. It's the perfect storm of fantastic because now you've got a competent storytelling dynamic at play across all the corners. Nothing can really be let down because everyone is on board and everyone's doing the best with what they've got because they've got incredible material. The issue a lot with Marvel and some of the DC stuff has been the material wasn't quality. It wasn't deep. It wasn't complex. It was very surface level. And that's a lot of what people are upset about and are why people are talking about, movies are in danger because I don't want to go see a movie where I'm going to be insulted or where the story is going to be bland or like I'm not going to be interested in finishing it because I don't really care. And there's just a lot at play in that. And so I don't know. That's really as we close out the podcast. That's kind of what I was. Yeah.
That's a really sad thing because like Marvel and DC, they have plenty of material, plenty of backstory to make these stories and these movies great. Like they could make these movies great, but like the last few Marvel movies, they've just been bad, like rushed, not good, like at all. Yeah. And it's been disappointing. Like Aquaman 2. I haven't watched it. Heard it was trash. Yeah.
Right. Well, and you watch a lot of reviews, and they're thoughtful in their review process. They're not just like, "Oh, it's dumb." They're like, "Well, here's why," and they'll bullet point it. They'll dig into it, and I'm just like, "Well, yeah, that doesn't sound very good. I don't know if I want to spend $15 and go watch a movie, versus I can go watch a television show on Amazon Prime, what I'm already paying for, and I'm good to go." My example that I talk about, my nose itches because it's the allergy season has hit because it's March. So if you're wondering why this is happening, it's because allergy season has arrived. Northern Exposure is an old school television show from the 90s, starring something Morrow. Tim Morrow? I don't remember his name. But it's set in a small town in Alaska. And it's a New York doctor who is coming from the metropolis into a small town. And it lasted 6 seasons. Watching that show is so good because its writing is great. Like, it's relatable. And it doesn't age. I mean, yeah, they had TVs. They didn't have cell phones. They didn't have a lot of computers back then in that show. But it's relatable because the storylines aren't timeline dependent. The storylines are human story dependent and relatable story dependent. And so you're sitting there watching Northern Exposure going, man, I understand what that guy's going through. Man, I understand what she's going through. Man, I understand what he's saying. Man, I've been there before. Man, this is my story. Versus a movie that tries to, quickly throw it together and drag you along and say, okay, you see this, this is the signal, this is what we're trying to tell you. You get the metaphor? Good. Boom, moving on. Like, it doesn't take its time to respect the viewer, the audience. It doesn't trust the audience because it can't, because the storyline is just quick and fast and just we gotta move.
That's something that Dune does really well. It progresses in a good pace, allows you to understand everything, to watch it. Yeah. It happens when it should happen. It's not just like, okay, here's this, and you're never going to see this again. This doesn't have meaning. This doesn't have a purpose for later. Yeah. But then it'll come back to it later. Yeah. And that's a good story. I mean, even in writing, sometimes looking back at things prior helps for the story progression, depending on what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So good writers, good actors, good directors. I mean, You have some very high-end actors in this movie. I mean, there's some very, very well-known actors in this movie. So it's very good. I know I could talk a whole lot more about it, but I don't want to give a ton of spoilers, so that's why I'm not like saying a ton. But enough. Well, and if you're watching the end plot, I mean, you know the end. I told you the end. Yeah. And a few notable moments in it, but I just want you to experience it for yourself and come back to me and be like, yeah, you was right. You was right.
Well, the son of Frank Herbert was previewed the movie, and his statement was, "This is the best like production of my father's legacy of all time. Like this is the true, this is the right, this is what it was. This is what Dune is. This is like there was no question. It was the highest amount of praise that he could find to throw at this movie was he was giving it, and I think with that vote of confidence, that's everyone should. If you haven't watched Dune the first, watch Dune the first, and then check out Dune the second, because movies like this don't come along often. I feel that's an I feel statement. The movies that become an icon in our time, and I feel like Dune has the potential to be that. It has the potential to be in our cultural zeitgeist, like a Lord of the Rings, like a Harry Potter. Well, all of those movies.
Me and my brother was talking. So I'm going to compare something you really don't like, but we're going to compare the old Star Wars to the new Star Wars. This is better
I think I'm probably going to agree with this.
The new Star Wars combined. There's nothing like it's better. I love Star Wars. We've talked about this. I'd never watch Dune. I don't know the Dune lore, but after watching these movies, I've come as an appreciation of Dune. I will probably own all 3 parts of these movies because there's a part 3 coming out at some point.
Oh boy.
Yeah. They said they were going to make 3 parts. I don't know when it's supposed to release, but part 1 and 2's out now. So now wait 3 years to get part 3. You know how it usually works.
But that's the thing. It's worth waiting.
It is.
It should be worth waiting. We shouldn't be rushing the production of these movies to satiate our need to have something right now. You want your movie to take time. You want the writing to be able to sit in that, simmering pot so that it can, the chaff or the fat or the bad stuff can get boiled away. And then you get the good stuff. You get the quality stuff. And that's the power of a good movie, is if your movie is allowed to do and go through the development and the production and all of that, then people are going to identify, okay, maybe that's not the right thing. That's not a good thing. We should move that or shift that or whatever. That's the power of a good story, is that when all of your pieces of your puzzle are working together toward the same goal, and again, it doesn't always work this way, clearly, but when all the stars align, when all the puzzle pieces come together, and they give you something just incredible, it's worth spending a $15 on to go see and participate in the experience of a movie that is the way movies should be, is what a movie should be. So there you go. That's the exhortation from the Quantum Photons to you, that you should definitely, for certainly, go see Dune 2. If you haven't seen Dune 1, start there, and then go to Dune 2 and believe in the future of movies. I do, at least, for the most part. My name is Aaron.
And my name is Stefan.
And this has been the Quantum Photons. We will see you next time, and as Stefan says,
clear skies.
And we'll join you next week as we continue on through the final frontier of all that we do. Next week will be a movie review for science fiction movies, so stick around for that next week. We haven't decided, but will definitely be a science fiction film to talk about and review and dig into and discuss. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. Until next time. See you later. Bye.